Welcome to Get to the Hook. I am your co-host, Charles Latibeaudiere.
And I'm your co-host, Eric.
I am laughing because I am resisting. I'm not going to do any accent.
You will by the end of this, I bet you do.
All right, maybe there might be an accent or two coming because this week the hook is Ireland. And of course, the reason we're talking about Ireland, earlier this week, you were all celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Hopefully you were not drinking green beer. There's some things you got to outgrow.
Although I do remember some St. Patrick's Days when you came into work with a kilt.
Okay, the kilt is fine. Yes.
Okay.
And guess what? I wore the kilt this year also. I just not on the show.
Oh, I was hoping. I'm looking under the desk.
No
kilt. Sorry,
no kilt today. But it does come out for celebrations. But I don't drink green beer even while I have the kilt on. So we want to talk about some artists that you obviously know are Irish, and then there are some that you don't probably realize are Irish. And we just want to celebrate the culture of the Green Isle, of the Emerald Isle.
There are some great artists we're going to talk about. And doing this, I kind of realized a lot of it ties into, whatever the genre is, into Irish folk music a little bit. And I realized a lot of these songs, and as you listen to them, think about it, they're really beautiful songs that are also very sad.
Yeah,
like, they don't even always sound like sad songs, but just there's like a
there's
weight
something
to them.
about about the music that it's funny. Like when you listen to Irish folk music, sometimes the lyrics I think, can be very hilarious.
Yeah,
and very entertaining. They're just great stories, but the music is kind of sad.
Yeah, and there's some incredible vocalists we're going to get to, some very sad stories on those, but. Let's start. We're going to jump to the 60s, and we're going to run through the decades. And it's interesting, I also think, there was the British invasion in the 60s in America. Mm-hmm. There was the British invasion in the 80s. We had a lot of Australian acts. We've seen different time periods where certain different countries or sounds, like Afrobeat is really big right now in America. Mm-hmm. Ireland never had an Irish invasion kind of moment, but it's been a constant presence. At any given moment, there's like a really big Irish artist.
Right.
Is huge in this country.
Here's the thing, Ireland. Put it together, man. Put it together all at once and get a movement here. Get an invasion, not just hits here and there, here and there.
Slow and steady's winning the race for Ireland.
All right.
Let's go back to the 60s, the late 60s, 1968. There's a folk band called the Rovers, although in America they were called the Irish Rovers because we have to be very plainly told things sometimes. And they were a huge folk band. Their biggest hit in America was a top 10 song in 68. Almost a novelty song. And as I said, these songs are like so, beautiful and sad. This one, it is actually sad, but this sounds like if you asked an American to do an impression of what they thought Irish music was, this would be like maybe this song is why. Maybe a generation grew up with this. This is the Irish Rovers' biggest hit. This song's called The Unicorn.
Cats and rats and elephants, but sure as you're born, the loveliest of all was the unicorn.
Thank God that's from an actually Irish band. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it does sound like you're right.
Almost
like
offensive.
Right.
But the song, it's called The Unicorn because it's the story of why there are no unicorns anymore. And it goes through Noah's Ark. And when the flood came, the unicorns didn't make it to the Ark and they got washed away and died. And that's why they don't exist anymore. So it sounds like a fun, upbeat song. But it's still really sad. But they were one of the first big Irish bands to hit in America in the late 60s there. Some other bands then that were folk acts, the Dubliners, the Chieftains were really big acts that still to this day.
What sort of mythical animals did they eulogize?
I don't know. I do know the Chieftains, in 1989, the Irish government officially named them Ireland's musical ambassadors.
All right.
Because they represented the history of Irish folk music and Irish culture and folklore. But while that's happening, there was a really big artist in the 60s and 70s that I think a lot of people maybe didn't know was Irish. Van Morrison.
Do you think they didn't know he was Irish?
I think some people didn't.
Maybe not.
Maybe they thought he was British. And I thought, what Van Morrison song should we play? And, there's obviously Brown Eyed Girl, which it's one of those songs like Celebration by Colley and the Gang.
Just a little overplayed. While you love the song and it's
a great
you'll always
song.
Bob your head along to it, but it's like, all right, I don't know.
I know. And it's like Domino, Moondance. He's got a lot of good songs. I picked a song that I love, and this is
because it's been covered so many times, and it's almost always a beautiful song, even when it's covered.
That's how I discovered this song was because in the 90s, Brian McKnight did a cover of it, and I was like, this song is great, and I didn't know it was Van Morrison at first. This is Crazy Love.
You give me
She gave me love, 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 crazy.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. What I always respect about Van Morrison, he clearly understood the beauty and the power of gospel, and it's always like inflected into his song somewhere.
The backing vocals on that song are just so soulful, and that's the thing with Irish folk music. It's not like American R&B music at all, and I don't think there's ever been a big Irish R&B singer. Nothing comes to mind. Although we will hear a song later that's had a big impact on R&B and hip hop.
Okay.
Through samples. But there is a very soulful quality to it.
Yeah.
This next song, this was one of the first really huge Irish artists to have a huge #1 song. This song was #1 for 6 weeks in 1972.
Again with the sadness. We must warning on the sadness.
This is maybe one of the 5 saddest songs ever to go to #1. Maybe the saddest, honestly.
I swear to God, when you go to Ireland, it's a happy place.
It is.
Don't let these songs, The Death of the Unicorn, this song, happy place.
This is from 1972, 6 weeks on top of the charts in America. Gilbert O'Sullivan, Alone Again, Naturally.
My arms need, I truly am indeed alone again, naturally.
And it's...
We don't have to go through we're not going to go through it line by line.
No, but
the
song
starts.
It starts him being stood up at the altar on his wedding day, and everybody's like, "Oh, what a shame she left him." And so he tries to go jump off a building.
Right.
And then he goes on about how he's alone because she left him, and he was alone when his dad died, and then his mom got depressed, and then she died. Now he's alone, and
Eric, tell me again, what year was this again?
1972.
72. What in the hell was happening in America? Why that song would be #1 for 6 weeks? I get it.
And that was a long time back then.
Right. All sorts of songs get to #1, and maybe they're there for a week, maybe 2. But that song for 6 weeks?
It's a really pretty song. Musically, it's beautiful and melancholy, but yeah, those lyrics are something else. Of course, also 1972, The Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr. went to #1. So,
okay, well, that's all right.
You know, it was a weird time. Things are getting crazy in America.
Were we taking shots at Sammy?
Also, My Ding-a-Ling by Chuck Berry hit #1 that year. So,
actually,
I'm just saying it was all over the place.
There is a pattern.
It was all over the place.
There's definitely a pattern. Okay.
Also, but later about the 70s, by the mid-70s, Ireland was giving us some rock.
Yeah.
A classic rock. One of the most classic rock songs of all time. The band Thin Lizzy. And this classic, The Boys Are Back in Town.
The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. The boys are back in town.
I'm going to tell you, there's one of those groups, one of those acts that I'm almost positive almost no one knew was Irish.
And there's a good reason why.
Yeah. Because, I actually didn't discover, I didn't discover it until I was actually in Ireland, in their hometown, and looked up on the wall, and there were all these photos like Thin Lizzy and everything. I was like, what the hell is that doing? I was in Cork, Ireland.
Wow, they love Thin Lizzy in Ireland.
They really love Thin Lizzy. Like, that was odd. And then someone, like the bartender or someone told me, no, they're from here.
Yeah.
So I almost went into accent. I almost did. But
so because the lead singer and bass player, Phil Lynott, was biracial, which I'm going to guess is not something super common in Ireland.
Yeah, I was also looking at it going like, oh, it feels black. What the?
How's a black Irish rock singer? Like, that's like Drake being like Jewish Canadian rapper. Like,
yeah, that would
things that don't always go together. Thin Lizzy was, and we're going to get a little bit into the politics of Ireland, not too much, but just as it relates to the music here. An important thing about Thin Lizzy, beyond just making great music, so Phil Lynott was biracial, which was a unique thing, and the band, so they came from across the border of Ireland and Northern Ireland, and Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, Ireland is not,
right?
And also there's a whole thing with like Protestants and Catholics, and it was called the Troubles.
Right.
It lasted from the 60s up until the end of the 90s. This was a 30-year thing of just, there were bombings.
Constant terrorism, really.
Yeah, terrorism, turmoil. And so it became very territorial. And so Thin Lizzy was a biracial group that straddled both sides of the border of Ireland and Northern Ireland. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they are so beloved. And they were much bigger in Ireland than they were in America, unfortunately, because they were a great band. But also this time by the late 70s, as you have that political turmoil going on, with the folk music, you also see punk start to happen.
Right.
And you have all these like punk bands in the late 70s, early 80s, post-punk, like the Pogues, the Boomtown Rats, with lead singer Bob Geldof, who, of course, in the 80s would create Band-Aid,
Band-Aid, which
Christmas.
then turned into Live Aid. And...
Yeah, he headed Live Aid. So it became very political. And you see that as an undercurrent that runs through a lot of these songs. One from the 90s, one of the biggest Irish bands of the 90s was the Cranberries. I love the Cranberries. Dolores O'Riordan, the lead singer, I think had one of the best voices of anybody on the radio in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And most of their songs are these really beautiful, sweet songs, maybe sometimes a little sad, but like sweet folk songs.
Yeah.
But one of their most iconic hits is very political, and it's because Dolores O'Riordan was in England and read a story about during the Troubles, there was a bomb put in a trash can that killed a 3-year-old and a 12-year-old. And she was just devastated by this and channeled that into music, and it became this song, Zombie. I think a lot of people in America didn't know context of that song. Just
right.
Like, hey, zombie, cool, fun.
Yeah.
And it's a catchy, great song. But there's
anti-war song, really.
Yeah. It's about children being blown up.
Yeah.
And it's heavy. It's very heavy. But
it does stand out, though, for, you're right, what you normally hear her singing.
Like Linger,
think of her
or
voice
Ode to My Family, and When You're Gone, like these beautiful, like almost folk songs, a lot of them. And she was angry, and it came out in that.
The Troubles affected people, man. And
they did.
It came out.
One of those people was Sinead O'Connor. Grew up in, 60s, 70s Ireland.
We all knew she was Irish.
Well, yeah, we did know that.
Yeah, that was.
Even if you didn't, the name kind of gives it away.
Gives it away a little bit.
But again, like I was saying, you realize some of these songs, they're so beautiful, but they're so haunting and sad, too. And Prince wrote this song, but the way Sinead interpreted it, her vocal, and the thing that really got people, I mean, the song was stunning and would have been a huge hit anyway, but it was the music video.
Oh, yeah.
Where there's a point where it's just her looking right in the camera with these big, beautiful eyes and just starts crying. And they've said that was not staged. That was real. And they were just like, we're rolling on it. She's crying. And it made the video.
Oh.
Because she and I think her longtime manager had split up. And she just got emotional. But we know this. So let's listen to some of it. This is Nothing Compares to You.
Nothing compares. Nothing compares to you.
And that song is, to me, still just as haunting as it was 35 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's an all-time classic.
There's the visual of the tear, but there's also a verse in there where her voice completely cracks.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's real.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff, man.
And I think that's something that runs through a lot of Irish music. But you do see by the end of the 90s, up into the early 2010s, as the boy bands were getting big in America, you had Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Britney Spears and all that kind of stuff. Same thing was happening with Irish music. It got very pop. You saw, remember the Corrs did the song Breathless, was a family group. Snow Patrol was Chasing Cars. Niall Horan from One Direction is Irish. Also Boyzone and Westlife. Do you remember them?
I don't know Boyzone. I know Westlife.
Westlife had one hit in America called Swear It Again. But yeah, these were the boy bands from Ireland that got big. And so it became very pop. I'm going to play one. This is a group, if people remember this group, I don't know if they knew that they were Irish. They were called The Script. Had a couple of hits like Hall of Fame with Will I Am for the first time. This was their biggest hit. Came out in 2009, peaked in 2010. This is Break Even.
When the heart breaks, no, it don't break even. What am I gonna do when the best part of me was going?
Very poppy.
Yeah.
Very catchy.
Uh-huh.
You don't really hear the folk music aspect.
No,
that.
you hear the pop in that.
And interestingly, from the late 90s up until a year and a half ago, one of the most influential Irish songs in America hit hip-hop and R&B. That's what I was talking about earlier.
Okay.
It was a sample that has been sampled over and over and over. Started in the late 90s. So the song originally is by I also didn't realize this, the best-selling solo artist from Ireland in history.
Okay, so I got double trivia facts that are going to blow my mind.
And
because I have no idea who you're talking about, but
Enya.
Excuse
Enya,
me?
the new age queen that we know for songs like Orinoco Flow,
Sure.
Only Time. She also, I did not realize she was the best-selling solo artist from Ireland ever, and she's second biggest selling. Period. You can guess who number one is. We'll get to them a little bit later, but yeah, Enya, in one of her album cuts, a song called Bodicea, has been sampled.
Can't say I've heard it.
You have, you just don't know it. It got sampled for a classic hip hop song in the mid to late 90s. That song got sampled in 2004. Then that song got sampled in 2023, and it's been a huge hit every time. So I'm just going to let you hear the sample, and you'll go,
So
oh my God, I've heard this
This is the
so many
genius
times.
of Enya.
This is the genius of Enya.
Across decades.
This is her song, Boadicea.
Ready or not? What?
Yeah, so Ready or Not by the Fugees.
That is an Enya?
Yes, so Wyclef Jean sampled Enya for the Fugees song Ready or Not.
Right.
That was a hit in 1996. 2004, Mario Winans samples it for his song I Don't Want to Know. Goes to number 2. Enya got a featured credit on that, so that's technically her biggest hit.
Okay.
Then in 2023, Metro Boomin, 21 Savage, and The Weeknd did the song Creepin', which uses the music of Boadicea, sampled originally from Wyclef.
The Fugees, right?
But it uses the lyrics and the melody from the Mario Winans song. So Creepin' is a sample of a sample of a sample.
Do we call that, is that a interpolation?
No? I don't even know what to call that. But basically, that one Enya song has been a huge hit 3 times in 3 different decades in hip-hop and R&B.
Who knew that Enya had so much street cred?
Who knew?
I wonder if the people, I mean, obviously their lawyers tell them at some point, but the people who are using it now are really just listening to the Fugees song.
But Mario Winans did give her a feature credit. It was featuring Diddy, which was 2004.
That's a whole other
I think featured Diddy and Enya. So
I wonder if the artist knew that, or if a producer / attorney pointed it out.
Worked
to
out
them
that
and
deal?
said, yeah.
I don't know,
Anyway.
but good for Enya. I can't even imagine how much money she's made from that song.
I imagine now I'm imagining Wyclef sitting down listening to an entire Enya song, entire album, and just going, which song do I want to use? Ooh, that sounds...
Or did he
put that one back? Put the needle back on that one.
Yeah, he listened to Enya and Roberta Flack, because that's the same album that had Killing Me Softly on it. So,
well, that album was ridiculous.
Yeah. The score by the Fugees is one of the classics. But I think by the middle of the 2010s, like I said, it had gotten very poppy. It started getting back to that sort of social commentary, folk music, a little bit darker, pretty kind of thing, because of one artist who has been the biggest Irish artist for the last decade, Hozier.
Yeah.
And the song that put him on the map that was a huge hit in 2014 is this song, Take Me to Church.
Take me to church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of your light. I'll tell you my sins and you can show me.
Like you said, that gospel sound, that church sound. I mean, not just because it's about Take Me to Church, but he has that feel. It's got that, and the song's about a relationship. It's just comparing your significant other to a religion. But I don't know if you remember the video for it. The video was the year before gay marriage was legalized in America nationwide. It showed 2 men who were in a relationship and get beaten to death. There's like a hate crime in the video. It's a very dark video. It's kind of like the Cranberries, where there's this sinister undertone.
Well, yeah, you don't really get it, and when you see the video, it tells you a different story than what you're just hearing in the lyrics. I thought I heard this earlier in the week when it was St. Patrick's Day. Is Hozier, just to prove how Irish he is, I think his birthday is actually on St. Patrick's Day.
Is it?
I thought I heard that day that someone was saying he was accepting some award that he had won.
Yeah.
And someone pointed out, the anchor pointed out that, it's his birthday too. And I was like,
oh, that is true.
Boom, we have confirmation.
Good
Look
job.
at that.
But does that mean anything to him? Because St. Patrick's Day
Because it doesn't mean anything in
not really a thing in
Ireland. They don't,
Ireland, He probably comes to America and is like, what is this?
Exactly.
What is the green beer and the leprechauns? What is this nonsense you're doing, making fun of my country? We mean it as love, but I'm sure it probably doesn't always come across that way to actual Irish people.
I never, when I was in Ireland, I never once brought up the word leprechaun.
No, why would you?
I don't know. I just feel like it's something that's maybe offensive. I was like,
Maybe.
no, never said it.
It's like an Irish person coming here and going, "Where's Bigfoot?"
Actually, most people in America would be probably cool with that. Be like,
Actually,
let me tell you all about it.
So we've talked about a lot of different Irish artists. There's one we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, I mean,
them for
obviously they
last.
have to be mentioned.
Of course, the biggest selling Irish act of all time.
They wave the flag. They are the flag bearer.
And everybody knew they were Irish. They are very, very proud of it. They're very political. Also know how to write a great song. Talking about U2, of course. And I thought, which U2 song do we play?
That's an
There's
impossible.
so many
That's
good
an
ones.
impossible.
And I chose maybe
Did
one of
you
the most
go-
obvious ones.
Did you go ballad?
I did because it kind, like I said, it fits this theme. of all these songs, like Alone Again Naturally or Nothing Compares to You or Take Me to Church,
they know how to do sad.
But in a beautiful way.
But in a powerful, beautiful
It's not melancholy, melodramatic, over the top, just like weepy, sad songs. It's these...
Not like Gilbert or Sullivan.
He went a little too far. But it's just these haunting, beautiful songs that can fit so many emotions. And this was the song that really broke U2 into the next level of A-list superstardom. It was their first #1 hit from 1987. This is With or Without You.
I'm uncomfortable the way Bono was staring at me. We're playing a music video in here, and I was like, stop looking at me like that. What the?
He's looking right through your soul.
I mean, that song is basically a cooler version of Alone Again.
Yeah, kind of. But the lyrics aren't... I was thinking about it. What is that song really about? Sleight of hand, twist of fate, on a bed of nails she makes me wait, and I wait without you. What? I don't really know what the song's about, but it doesn't matter.
It's a love song, but it's a sad love song.
But that's the thing. It's just the music and the passion in his voice as the song builds and he hits that big wail towards the end.
Yeah.
You don't hear that song, you feel that song. And that's why, as overplayed as it is, I've never gotten tired of that song.
That whole album, I can still listen to start to finish.
Yeah, the Joshua Tree is the great albums of all time.
I celebrated St. Patrick's Day last weekend by going to see a local tribute band. Actually, not local. I think they tour. Hollywood U2.
Oh, you saw a U2 tribute band.
I saw a U2 tribute. And I will say, just give them a little cred that they are so well known and good enough that when U2 was playing Staples, I don't know, probably like 10, 15 years ago, they invited the lead singer up on stage and he sang, I think it was With or Without You with Bono.
That's amazing. What a dream come true that is.
Yeah. In fact, he referenced it during the show. He's like, I don't know if you guys remember. I was like, yes, we all remember.
He will talk about that the rest of his life.
As he should.
As he should.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me, U2, it's a generational thing, because I think you and I still associate them as being the cool band.
Yes.
Whether we liked them or not in the 80s, they were... Critics loved them. Radio loved them. Everyone loved them. The cool kids liked them. The pop fans liked them.
They were like they started out as being like a cool alternative college band, and then they had the big jump to pop.
And then they went like electronic in the 90s, but in a cool, artsy way.
And they were still the cool band, but I understand that, the next generations...
We know what the turning point was.
Saw them differently. For something that I was like, God, get over it already. I mean, it was stupid.
It was 2014 was I think it was Songs of Innocence was the album that U2 thought they were being nice and just giving away for free. They had it that it just
had a deal
automatically downloaded onto your iPhone.
Right. They made a deal with Apple and
this was kind of before the streaming era, so people were still downloading music and buying downloads from the iTunes store. And you just wake up in the morning and, U2's new album is on my phone. It's installed itself. I get why that really put a lot of people off. Because think of all the artists that maybe you don't love. If you just look and, their album's on your phone now.
And that was at a point where memory was not the memory on your phone isn't what it is now.
Yeah.
So it actually was precious real estate. and
But the other thing is, people kind of turned on Bono because he's such a do-gooder, always trying to save the world and feed the children. What's wrong with that? We're like, this jerk wants to feed kids and give music away. What a jerk. I
heard it heard it last weekend where I mentioned something about going to see this band and my friend said to me, he goes, what is that jerk? Is the lead singer going to tell me what to do with my money too? Huh? While he's living as a tax, what do you call him? A tax exile in the south of France. I was like, all right.
I get it, but
just going to go and enjoy some music.
He's done a lot of good in the world. It's the same thing. The most clear musical descendant of U2 to me is Coldplay, and kind of the same thing where Chris Martin seems like just a nice guy.
Yeah.
And people who don't like them just think that he's the biggest dork and the uncoolest person in the world. There's so much hatred for Coldplay, but not for anything they ever really did.
Nope.
Just because.
If you ask them about the song, they go either people they either like it or they have to admit they like it, or they go, no, I don't feel either way about it. But so why the rage? Why the hatred?
I don't know. And like with U2, if you find Bono's philanthropy off-putting, which sounds ridiculous to say, but the music.
It's hard to argue. If you just listen to the music. Anyway. We're not going to convince anyone who's a U2 hater.
No, and
right
I'm not
now
even like the biggest U2 fan in the world.
Right.
I'm not saying that, but there's no denying the catalog. There's so many great songs.
So many will deny it, though. Anyway.
Anyway.
What we mean to say is...
Good job, Ireland.
Aaron, go
Thanks
raw.
for the music. Yeah.
There, I did it.
A little bit. You made it to the end. You got so close.
Yeah. But
all right.
We decided to celebrate. We'll call this sort of our musical maps for Ireland.
Right.
I can't promise we're going to do every country. In fact, I'm not promising that at all.
That Hungarian music, we're going to do a whole special on that. So.
Ooh, can't wait. There's a barn burner.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next week on Get to the Hook.